All right, so this video is the first in a series of talking about cellular respiration, the process of cellular respiration. And as usual, you should have a scratch piece of paper out or a whiteboard out so that you can practice and actively write things down to help you learn. And the first thing I want you to do is I want you to write down everything that you know about cellular respiration. And if this is the first time you're watching this, you might not have a whole lot to write down, but the more times you repeat this video, the better you're going to get at this. So pause the video and write down everything you know. All right, so you should start off with the basic definition. You should say that cellular respiration is an organism's process of where it converts glucose into ATP. You're going to remember that from earlier videos, glucose is great at storing lots of energy, but it's not very useful to the cell. The cell needs energy in the form of ATP. So cellular respiration is the process that it uses to convert the glucose to ATP. Some other things that hopefully you wrote down. Number one, this is done by every single living thing, including plants. A lot of times students think that plants don't do this, but yes, they do this. They do photosynthesis and cellular respiration. They do both. Also, cellular respiration always starts with a process called glycolysis, which we're going to talk about primarily in this video today. There's two forms. There's aerobic, and the word aerobic literally means oxygen, so aerobic respiration. This is the most common form, but there's also something called anaerobic, so that is one without oxygen. So let's focus a little bit more on glycolysis. And what I want you to do now is I want you to pause the video and break down the word glycolysis. So what does glyco mean? Write that down. And what does the word lysis mean? Write that down. Go ahead, pause and do it now. All right, so hopefully you said glyco means glucose and lysis means to split or break down, right? So we're literally taking, if we can see this animation here, we're literally taking glucose and breaking it apart. That's what's happening in glycolysis, the breaking down of glucose. Now, here's a little diagram showing you what's actually going on. You don't need to know the nitty-gritties behind this, but let's just kind of walk through it really quick. So here is our initial molecule of glucose, and in order to actually break it apart, we have to add ATP. It's kind of weird. We're going to add ATP to a process that we're using to make ATP. But they add ATP and it gets broken down, and then the same chemical reaction happens twice. Okay, so we can see some NADH being made with these electrons, and then we can see that each of these reactions makes 2 ATP. So if you think about the long-term process, right? I added 2 ATP to start it, and I created 4. So my net gain would be a total of 2 ATP from the process of glycolysis. It also makes this thing called pyruvic acid, which we're going to use the word pyruvate most times. Here's another way to look at it. Okay, so let's just focus only over here on the left side right now. Okay, over here. So right now we're working in a space called the cytosol, which is like the fluid inside of your cells. Okay, so let's talk about the process of what's going on here. We know the purpose of cellular respiration is to convert glucose into ATP. We know that the energy conversion that's taking place is we're converting chemical energy of glucose to a different form of chemical energy in ATP. Now, when we're taking a look at this, let's focus here on what's going on with glycolysis. We just said that glycolysis is the idea that glyco means glucose, and it's being broken down, lysis, and we make pyruvate. And again, this is taking place in the cytosol, which is the fluid of the cell. Okay, so this is really the basics. So what are we making from this? Well, obviously we're making our pyruvate, but we're also making a little bit of energy for the cell. Okay, we're also making NADH. Now from here, cellular respiration can take 2 turns. If you have oxygen, it's going to go into the mitochondria, the pyruvate is, and it is going to start off aerobic respiration. If there's no oxygen available or there's no mitochondria available, it's going to go and stay in the cytosol, and it's going to go to a process called anaerobic respiration. Those 2 processes are for a different video though. All right, so if you had trouble with this, if you're not understanding it, if you did the initials and you didn't really understand what was going on, you want to re-watch this video several times and keep practicing on your scratch paper or on your whiteboard until you get really good with this. What is cellular respiration? What is glycolysis? Understand what happens. Okay.